Hi, my name is Olivia McGuire, and today we will be reviewing environmental systems, which will be food webs and food chains. So first we will look at food webs, food chains, and ecological pyramids. Then we will see trophic levels, energy flow, and microorganisms. And then finally we will review it all. What are food chains? Food chains are models used to show the flow of energy between organisms in an ecosystem. They show a single chain of energy flow starting with a producer and ending with a tertiary consumer. So here are some examples. In the first one, you have one producer, one primary consumer, and a secondary consumer. And the bottom two have a little bit more information. They show a little bit more biodiversity. Now let's look at the differences between some food chains. So in the first one, you can see that it shows two abiotic factors, and it also has a decomposer. While in the second example, they only show the sun. In your food chains, you always want to show the sun because that is how the producers get their energy from photosynthesis. You don't have to put water or anything else like that, but you can, obviously, and you always want to have a decomposer. So food webs. Food webs are multiple food chains put together into one model to show the flow of energy in an ecosystem. With this example, you can see this food web has multiple producers, it has multiple primary consumers. You also want to note the arrows. So this will speak on that. Pros of food webs. Food webs can show the interactions in an ecosystem. They show the interdependence of predator-prey relationships. But a con can be that it's a little confusing. So you always want to remember that the arrows show the flow of energy in these models. You always need to follow the arrows to make sure that you are looking at the right flow of energy, because if you're not, then you can get a lot of questions wrong, because that's what the majority of the questions are about. Ecological pyramids. So an ecological pyramid shows the transfer of energy based on different levels of consumption. The different sections of the pyramids show a visual of how energy decreases the further the animals are removed from the producers. So trophic levels are these different levels. There are producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. You can see this in our example to the right. A keynote is that with each level of consumption, only 10% of the energy from the prey gets transferred to the predator. The further the animal is from actually eating the producer, they will have less amount of energy than your primary consumers. So here's an example down at the bottom. It goes 10,000 to 1,000 to 100 to 10. So always just multiply by 10% and you will get your energy. Arrows in food webs and food chains. The arrows are so important because you always need to follow where the arrows are so you can see the flow of energy. If you make the arrows backwards, then you can show a primary consumer is being eaten by a producer, and that's just not realistic. On STAR and test questions, they always will ask about what animal eats this, and you just have to look at the arrows. So, moving on to decomposers. Decomposers are microorganisms in ecosystems that break down dead organic matter and return these nutrients to the soil to be later used by producers. So, if you can think of any decomposers, you will most likely think of fungi or your mushrooms and stuff like that, but there actually are some more microorganisms, and we will look at that on our next slide. So earthworms, obviously fungi, and bacteria. So bacteria can break down and bring it back to the soil, which will be used by the plants, like I said. So here is just a chart to show the biotic factors and the different levels. I thought this was helpful for me personally because it shows the different types of consumers, and then it also has your decomposers and your producers. Like I said earlier, I just want to reiterate that you should always show the sun in your food chains. Bye, y'all.